College football preview show presented by Yolked. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and I'm joined by a guy who I would generally consider to be yoked, Ryan Barry. Ryan, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. That's really generous because I feel like I have, after the summer of eating that I've had, I do not feel very yoked. I need yoked going forward to get back to looking yoked if I ever was there. So, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Then we've got the perfect product for you with only
Yeah.
47 calories per pack. It's a natural egg protein that will help add to your workouts. There's a variety of packages available if you visit yoke.com. Not only is there a variety of packages available, but also there's ways that you can get discounts if you're a coach and you want to use the product. And it is a safe and effective product for athletes if you want to use the product in your program. Visit yoke.com today for more information. So just like Ryan needs to get yoked, if
Yeah.
you're out there and you need to get yoked, then visit yoke.com today. Again, it's a great product. It's a packet about this big, 47 calories, tastes like birthday cake. It's all natural. You'll love it. Visit yoke.com today for more information. All right, you know who got yoked over the weekend was Boston College with an ugly 30-20 loss to Stanford. And I'll be honest with you, Ryan, going into the game, they were 14.5-point favorites on Saturday. We talked about this last week on the preview show about how, hey, this one's chalk. Check it off. They'll go into the bye 2-1. They got Cal coming into town at the end of the month. Chance to build some momentum as they go into the tougher part of their schedule. No, complete no-show. They were winning 17-6. They blew an early lead, played terrible in the second half. And if I'm a Boston College football fan, Ryan, this performance really pisses me off. It really disappoints me because this team needs to be better than that, plain and simple. And they are better than that. 1-2 after 3 weeks, bye comes at the right time. But this loss stings, in my opinion.
I I think when, beginning of the season, we're talking, a 7-win team, and it's going to be very hard to get to 7, 8 wins at this point with a loss like this. And you look at 56 rushing yards is not going to cut it. And I think that that's what's
No.
really frustrating is that there's, Dylan Lonergan was okay, 333 passing yards, it's is good. Of course, Turbo looked good in the passing game, but it's the fact that they can't run the ball, the fact that they can't stop running the ball is really really surprising. I mean, this is I think I've never been crazy about Stanford and Cal being in the ACC. It makes no sense, but this is
No,
a little bit of
zero
a
sense.
no, but this is a little bit of that maybe kind of unknown, like maybe unforeseen issue for some of these ACC teams, vice versa for like to go out there play a night game on the West
A
Coast.
Saturday night at 10:30.
Yeah, it's
And they didn't go out until Friday, which I don't care what anybody says at Boston College. That can affect the football team if you travel that late.
yeah,
You,
and I
you,
think
you probably should have headed out on a Thursday, but
yeah,
alas, I digress.
and I'm not blaming the fact, I don't want to blame a 6-hour flight for why you lose to a Stanford team that's been just completely terrible since the Shaw years. But I was shocked when I saw this outcome. Like when I woke up the next morning, I like to look at the scores and see how our New England teams did. I couldn't believe this one, and I think this, if like you said, you're pissed if you're a BC fan. There's no other way around it. You're angry and you're pissed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, these are games you got to win. We keep talking about how do they break that 6 to 7 win cycle and win more than that. Well, you got to win games like this, plain and simple. These are games you got to win. You've got to be able to look at your schedule once it's finalized in the offseason, and you got to be able to look at some of these games, Ryan, and say, yep, we got this one, check. Yep, we got this one, check. You got to be able to do that. This is a game when you're playing a program. Let's face it, Stanford is in disarray. They're on an interim coach with Frank Reich. Andrew Luck is the president of football ops. He's trying to get it changed there, get them back on track. You mentioned how they were good during the Shaw years, but they've tailed off since. He's trying to get this program back on track. This is a program that's ripe for you to beat him, and you don't. And I don't care what anybody says. You watch Bill O'Brien's post-game press conference. I mean, the look on his face says it all. He's legitimately pissed, and I don't blame him. He should be pissed. This was a piss-poor performance by his team, and I agree with him. The coaching sucked. The playing sucked. Everything sucked. The bye week comes at the right time. Boston College really needs it. Continuing this theme of sucking, UConn drops to 1-2 after a heartbreaking overtime loss to FBS first-year program Delaware. They lose in overtime 44-41. And when you go back the week before, Ryan, and they're at Syracuse, and for 3 quarters, their defense is playing outstanding, and they're dominating that game. And then that same defense melts down late and then turns around the next week and lays a complete egg like they did against Delaware. For a UConn fan, that has got to be stomach churning. Like, that's got to make you sick to your stomach that your program went from potentially beating Syracuse the week before, a good ACC program, to losing to a first-year FBS school in Delaware. Not taking anything away from Ryan Carty and his program. He does a great job there. They do a great job. But, man, I mean, again, it's just so hard for me to believe that they lost this game.
Yeah, this is a really weird analogy I'm about to make that might make no sense in the acumen of being a commentator, but I feel like BC and UConn are both in the same sense where, like, you're sitting at a restaurant and you're waiting for your food. It's taking a long time, but then your server comes up to you and it's like, don't worry, it's coming out soon, right? But then you sit there and you wait another half hour, and then you get to the point where, like, no, but okay, where the heck is my food, right? Like, if you're UConn and BC, why the heck aren't we winning these games? Like, we've been waiting. We've bought our time. Like, we've done what we've had to do. Why are we losing? Like, we need to win today. Like, how are we not beating Delaware? Like, we're supposed to be this team. We're looking at potentially 8, 9, 10 wins if you're UConn, and we're playing this bad. Same with BC.
Yeah.
We're losing to Stanford on the road. Like, again, another really shocking upset. I think one of the biggest ones, I would say, in, that kind of group of 5, group of 6 conference level. Because I know, all due respect to Delaware, they've been one of the best FCS teams for a very, very long time. Making the jump for them was way easier than other programs. But you can't have as many yards on offense as you did for the Huskies and still lose and allow 247 rushing yards. That's just unacceptable, especially for this defense that's supposed to be as strong as they are.
No, and that's just it. And I think the other thing that's so, deflating is the week before they lose to Colorado 31-7.
Right.
Played tough. Colorado's not what they were last year. But, I mean, again, I think it comes down to your point that if you want to be that program that takes that next step and is consistently good, and we've talked about this, it's really important for UConn football to be consistently good. If you want to be that program, you got to win games like this. There's no way around it. You have got to win games like this, plain and simple. This is a bad loss. You were 9.5-point favorites on the road, and you botch it. Now, you returned home this week to take on Ball State. Remarkably, somehow, UConn is 20.5-point favorites in this game. Ball State beat UNH last week, but
barely.
But this is a game again. You got to have this one. If we're talking about a program that's going to win potentially 9, 10 games, I always thought 10 was a bit rich, but 8 or 9 wins anyway. Maybe your 10th win is the bowl win if you win a bowl game. For now, you have to sit there and ask yourself, can this team win 6 or 7 games? Can this team, I don't want to sound hyperbolic or that I'm panicking here, but is this team good enough to win the requisite number of games they need to become bowl eligible? I mean, I guess we'll find out this week, but it's a disappointing loss nonetheless. Do we really need to spend a lot of time on UMass's 47-7 loss to Iowa?
Nope, it happened. It happened. That's all. I can't even come up with the words. It happened. It was the football game.
And by the way, we couldn't be more wrong. Here we are saying, Iowa, well, not you, me, I'm the bloviator on the show, but Iowa, 35.5-point favorites. There's no way they're going to cover that. Their offense sucks. They don't score enough. They beat them by 40. So what the hell do we know?
234 passing yards from the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah, a team that throws the ball like shit.
Yep, more points given up than Albany, who lost to, all due respect to New Haven, that's a huge win for that program, of course. But it's just a team that's just making the jump, and that Albany team plays better against Iowa than UMass does. That's it in a nutshell, So, yeah.
I know Ryan Bamford spoke this week, and he talked about the fact that he's not pleased with where they are Um, I think that's genuine disappointment, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us saw this football team at 0-3 after 3 weeks. If anything, most of us thought they'd probably be 2-1.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, part of me is like, all right, thanks for coming out and saying whatever you needed to say. It doesn't help things. But on the flip side, yeah, I get it. They should be better than 0-3, plain and simple.
Yeah, but I mean, huge credit to Garrett Cody for getting there and asking him the tough questions because he doesn't. Bamford does not make himself available to be asked the difficult questions, whether it's on social media, in person. You know, he's very, very good. He's at talking to people and being, charming with people. Like he's a guy. He's the type of AD that you want for how to interact with people public facing, right? I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, all the decisions that are made, yada yada, all that gets said. But I give him a lot of credit for, you know Garrett, that is, for asking him those questions because it's tough to find him. He's not always available, and there's way more questions that people do want to ask. And I don't know, if he even knows the answers, which is the hardest part, right? Because he's probably sitting there like, listen, I put a lot of money into this. What more do you guys want me to do? So.
And again, it begs the question we asked last week, which is $12 million enough
Yeah.
to run a successful football program at the FBS level? That is the football budget at UMass. Is that enough? I don't think it is. But the problem you face if you're UMass is, and we talked about this last week as well, how much are you willing to spend on a program that just isn't having any success? You
Right.
can up the ante, let's say, and spend another $8 million a year. Is it going to matter for a program that's not winning?
Yeah, it's hard to justify it. It's kind of like having an old car that you really love because it's been in the family forever.
And you keep putting money into it.
Yeah, and you're like, but like, it just popped the tire. Well, tires happen, but now it's a transmission. You're like, well, damn, I really need the transmission. At a certain point where you're like, what? I don't know, John. I'll tell you, I'm just grateful that I'm grateful there's a bye week. I'm grateful I don't have to write a preview and try and be like, well, yeah, so this is what it is, So.
And it doesn't get any easier after the bye. They have to go to Missouri. So
yeah, who's looking, I think, maybe even better than last year. So.
Yeah, which is scary. But
yeah,
Eli Drinkwitz has done a really good job there. We mentioned Ball State earlier. They did beat UNH 34-29. Tough loss for the Wildcats, but they come back to the Granite State this week with the Ivy League, of course, kicking off this weekend. The Wildcats are going to be playing Dartmouth at Dartmouth for the Granite Bowl. Our Alan Lessels will be there for that one. Should be a really good game. We'll preview that here momentarily. Tough loss, though, for the Wildcats, but nonetheless, to be able to go on the road against a MAC opponent and play as well as they did, we talk about this all the time. I feel like this is the moral victory show. There are no moral victories, but if you're Ricky Santos and his staff, and we know Ricky's the ultimate winner, if you're Ricky Santos and his staff, you've got to be pleased with where the program is right now after a performance like that. I mean, they could have very easily won the game.
Yeah, this game reminded me a lot of the one, I think it was 2 years ago now, I don't think 3, against Central Michigan, where Max Brosmer was quarterback. Very, very close to winning that one.
Yeah.
Very, very similar game. I do think the only thing I will take away from this, is that they need more out of their running game other than Matt Vezza, because obviously he's a mobile.
The running game has not been good so far.
Yeah, Miles Thomason showed us a lot last year, which is why it's been kind of surprising through the first 3 weeks to kind of not maybe see as much. So hopefully maybe he gets it going. But Caleb Burke looked great. Chase Wilson looked great, and I'm really excited for what the Wildcats can do. But it's just this is when it stinks, because this would have been, I think, really big for the program.
Yeah, absolutely. URI beats Holy Cross 9-7 in a great game. URI improves to 3-0. They do drop a couple spots in the FCS poll. They're currently the 7th ranked team in the country. But nonetheless, they return home this week to take on a Long Island team that beat Eastern Michigan a couple weeks ago, but then lost last week. So I don't know what to make of them either. But you know what? For URI, I think what this win proved was they can win in a variety of ways, Ryan. They can win a shootout, but they can also win one of those tight, grinded out kind of games. Yeah,
and again, that running game kicking in is really important. Last year, that felt like what they were missing at times. But Antoine Littleton, 94 yards. He's kind of that guy that is able to bail out a game where maybe Devin Farrell's not on his A game, right? And I think that that's huge. So, I mean, this was like this. this felt like an old school football game, like something that you would have seen in the 60s or 70s, with like plastic helmets and, mud on the, like
Well,
on the field,
technically, they're still plastic.
Right, true,
But,
yeah, crappy plastic, yeah. So
yes.
it was very surprising,
Whatever they were using in between leather and plastic, we'll say.
yes, yeah. So, but I mean, concerning a little bit, I think, from Holy Cross, but we'll see as the season goes on. But the fact that Jaden Clervaux still hasn't really gotten his game going so
No,
far,
he hasn't gotten going. Although, when you look at them, they could very easily be 3-0. Right? Could have very easily beat Northern Illinois. They lost by 2 to them, 19-17. They lost by 3 to UNH, and they lost by 2 to URI. I mean, Holy Cross is a couple plays away from potentially being undefeated. Unfortunately, their schedule doesn't do them any favors.
No.
They're at Yale on Saturday for their season opener. So,
yeah.
And again, kudos to Dan Curran and the administration there for being willing to play the kind of schedule that they play. But again, that schedule, it's tough, and it's important to get off to a good start and win one or two of these first few games so that you can build some momentum into the rest of the season.
Right.
It's hard to do when you're playing a schedule like they're playing. How about Stonehill going up to Orono and beating Maine? I don't think any of us saw this coming. Congratulations to Eli Gardner, his coaching staff, and his players. Big win for the Skyhawks. I think it's the biggest win in program history. Our good buddy at NEC Blitz thought their win against Duquesne a couple of years ago was. But you know what? That was an NEC win. I'm not taking anything away from Duquesne. Good program, the vaunted Duquesne Dukes. But this is against a CAA opponent. This is against an established opponent with a history and tradition. A program, by the way, don't scoff at this, folks. Coming off a 5-7 season, but a program that had a couple big wins last year and was returning a lot of talent, specifically quarterback Carter Peavy. This is a big win for Stonehill for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, we were talking about Maine as, could they get to 7 wins this year? I think that we were looking at them definitely in the realm of 5-6 games, but I don't, but maybe possibly 7. So this is a huge hit for them because, conference play is going to kick in. But to see Carter Peavy play not as well as
he has not been very good.
Is very concerning if you're a Black Bears fan, especially starting 0-3 because this was supposed to be that layup game. This was that soft landing after a few tough early weeks.
You got to go to Georgia Southern this week. I mean, they played Liberty, they played William and Mary. You got Georgia Southern. This, to your point about the soft landing, this was supposed to be the game that, maybe potentially come the fourth quarter, you can rest some of your starters.
Right.
But I bet you they didn't expect to be in a dogfight like they were.
Right. And now we're looking at, an 0-4 start to the month, and you're going to have to win, however many games the rest of the season, to try and make it look more respectable compared to what you thought it was going to be. So, but the focus, as you were saying before, I don't think we gave any credit to Stonehill potentially going in to win this game. If there was a line, if we would use one of the Sarianides draft book lines, we would have probably had them at 7.5, maybe 10.5 point favorites, maybe, Maine, I don't know.
Definitely would have been double-digit favorites with the mythical lines.
Yes, yeah. So it's huge. I agree. This, no matter how Maine ends the season, let's say Maine even wins 2 games the rest of the way. This is still big for Stonehill to beat a program in the CAA who's been long established as one of the, solid teams. So huge credit to them for this.
Yeah, big one now. Stonehill hosts Penn on Saturday. That doesn't get any easier for them. And as I mentioned, Maine has to go down to take on Georgia Southern, who is led by former USC coach Clay Helton. Bryant beating Bentley 4-2-6. Big win for Chris Merritt's squad. They hit the road this week. They traveled to Campbell. Opportunity to improve to 3-1 on the season. But, that UMass win, we said it last week, and I'm going to echo it again this week, could really be a springboard to a big season for this program. They could really take the momentum, the high of winning a game like that, and really carry it over here moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, they unveiled a new facility within the last few weeks, too. It's just the vibes are high at Bryant. They're investing. And again, I know it's Bentley who has a very solid Division II program, but still, you win those games like you're supposed to. It's confidence, especially after UMass. It's just, things are pointing up. And like you said, with the way the CAA is looking, some of these games I might have had as losses going to this year, I don't know. They could be wins for them. We could be talking about a 6-7 win team for Bryant come the end of the season, depending on how things shake out.
That would be huge in year 2 of being in the CAA.
Yeah.
It would be huge for Chris Merritt. It would be huge for the program. So, looking at the FCS independent ranks, Sacred Heart improving to 2-1 on the season. Beat Long Island, who I mentioned earlier. Of course, Long Island travels to URI this week. Long Island 2 weeks ago beat Eastern Michigan. And then all of a sudden the following week, Sacred Heart, a program that has struggled offensively, beats them 24-21. Nice win for Mark Knopfrey's squad.
Yeah, that's college football, and that's why it's the greatest sport, because you look at the
unpredictability of it.
Yeah, like it's without even looking, I would have just picked LIU blindly because of, you might have expected maybe a little bit of a letdown after such a high of beating Eastern Michigan, but you're at home, you're against a team like Sacred Heart who really can't throw the ball. They've been struggling to run, which is their kind of hallmark. And then the Pios put up 214 rushing yards, 19 total yards passing for Long Island. It's just crazy, and it's on the road too. And that's the type of win that you need to be like, no, we can be okay the rest of the way. Like it looked a little bit shaky the first 2 weeks, but no, we have a team here. So
yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think again with Sacred Heart, they're going to run the football. They're going to play good defense. It always comes down to whether or not they can score enough. And I think you saw what happened. When they could score enough, they could be a pretty good football team. They travel to Norfolk State to take on Michael Vick's squad this week. Another winnable game, though.
Yeah.
Norfolk State does have a win, but I still think that this is a game that the Pios should win. Merrimack loses to Kennesaw State in a game that was somewhat competitive. I mean, 27-13 final. The Warriors hung in there. The loss drops them to 1-2. They return home this week. Let me just double check the schedule. Yeah, of course, they return home this week to take on Central Connecticut State, which should be a really good game. We'll have coverage of that one. But, again, Merrimack has proven the last couple of years under Mike Giannetti that they can compete with these FBS programs.
Yeah, it's I might have been a little overzealous picking the Warriors because I took them last week. But still, just to hang in there and be as competitive as they were, and to be able to hang around, you get the huge turnover midway through the game to get within 2 scores, and that's all you can ask for if you're Merrimack, right? When you're taking on a team like Kennesaw, who I know has made the jump up, but still, that's what you're looking for.
They're in UB.
Yeah, but that's exactly what you're hoping. So, a great opportunity this weekend for Merrimack to try and get to that 500 plateau.
Speaking of Central Connecticut State, they beat St. Francis 31-7 to pick up an NEC win. Kind of puts them in the early driver's seat in the conference. We mentioned, obviously, Stonehill beating Maine. And New Haven, you mentioned this earlier, picks up their first win as a Division I program. They won the one game on their schedule that I didn't think they would win. They beat Albany on the road 24-17. Congratulations to Coach Mark Powell and the Chargers. They have their home opener on Saturday against Saginaw Valley State. Big win for New Haven.
And that's what's, again, going back to why it's so funny, is it's why it's one of the greatest sports. They get smoked by Mercyhurst, who I had in penciled in as one of those wins that they could get at that, Division I level. So, again, we know where Albany has been, and they're not there necessarily this year. But that doesn't matter. You're still playing with a lot of guys, who are at that, potentially Division II level for the, for New Haven. So congratulations again.
Yeah, big win for them. As I mentioned, that they are going to be hosting Saginaw Valley State this week. You're watching the College Football Preview Show presented by Yolked. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Ryan Barry. We do want to remind you that we are sponsored by Yolked. If you're looking for a safe and effective protein powder to incorporate into your workouts, then we've got the product for you. At only 47 calories, it's a great tasting product, tastes like birthday cake, goes down easy, and it's all natural. Visit yolk.com today for more information. And Yolked has been sponsoring this show now for 3 years. Dante Carnevale and his group want to thank you guys for sponsoring us again. You're a great sponsor. Dante, we appreciate you, my friend. You're not only a great sponsor, but a great friend of New England Football Journal and to me. And we appreciate it. I think that it's, I think it's a testament to you guys and what you do, your commitment to us. and obviously our commitment to you as our sponsor. We appreciate it. I know that our fans of the show also appreciate the product as well. I've gotten good feedback on it. So thank you again to Dante and the crew over at Yolked. And again, visit yolked.com today for more information on how you can purchase this great product. All right, let's move on to previewing this week's games. Boston College, as we mentioned earlier, is on a bye. They're not playing this week. UMass is on a bye. They're not playing this week. Your stress level gets a week off, Barry. UConn is playing this week. They're hosting Ball State. Huskies, a 20.5-point favorite. You have any confidence in the world that they can cover that number after last week's performance?
I'm going to say no, just because, Ball State still is, they are still a MAC school. I don't, it's tough because, college football is crazy, but I feel burned in some ways by UConn because last week after, I thought they'd come out pissed after, nearly beating Syracuse and be like, no, this is the team we are. And then they lose. So it's really, maybe that's coming this week. So I'm going to take the Huskies, but I'm not going to take the points if I had to, just because it seems way too high for a team that hasn't shown me enough of that to be able to be that blowout merchant.
I just don't trust their defense, to be quite honest with you. The offense is good enough. I think they're going to score on anybody on their schedule. Okay, yeah. Joe Fagnano playing at a high level. You got Cam Edwards. You got Sky Bell. They're going to score on everybody. I just don't trust this defense right now. And I know they're well coached because Jim Moore is on that side of the ball, and I know Coach Brock is a good coach. But right now, I need to see a dominant performance from them on Saturday before I can get – I'm still on the UConn bandwagon. I'm still drinking the blue Kool-Aid. I'm still all in. I'm committed to the cause. But I want to see more out of this defense before I start putting my hard-earned money on them. I don't like that 20.5 number. I think it's a little too rich given where UConn is right now. I think the Huskies win, but I think they win by between 14 and 17 points. Yeah, I don't see them covering that number.
Yeah, that's a good spot. Yeah, I would probably say so.
I agree. All right, let's go over to the CAA. As I mentioned earlier, New Hampshire is going to take on Dartmouth. Of course, the Ivy League kicks off this weekend. Wildcats, Big Green in Hanover. It's the Granite Bowl, one of the best games of the year. Should be a fun matchup. Of course, Dartmouth returns a slew of guys from last year, guys that have been key contributors to their last three co-Ivy League championship teams. When I look at this game, Ryan, Dartmouth to me is a program that I think when we talk about the Ivy League, and of course the Ivy League can play in the FCS playoffs this year, it's a 10-week race. It's a sprint. It's not a jog. There's no bye week. Only the strong survive. But this Dartmouth team, Grayson Saulnier at quarterback, Sean Williams on the defensive side of the ball, Matt secondary. This is a good football team. And I think they have an experience edge here over UNH. And I think that's the difference in this game.
Yeah, I think they're going to – this is truthfully one of the best games usually on the slate. I covered it a few years ago. It was one of my favorites I've ever done. I'm going to take Dartmouth here because UNH has been playing a lot. I think, especially after last week, maybe being beat up a little bit. I do think they could win, but I just think that Dartmouth comes in a little bit more fresh. They will have some rust in them, no doubt, because they haven't played yet. But these games are going to mean a lot more to the Ivy League, which might make me think, I don't know, you know them more, but there's part of me that's like, are they going to have to start getting on a normal schedule now since they're going to be doing the FCS playoffs? Because if you start losing these games,
that's a very good point.
If you only have a couple out-of-conference games and you lose them, well, you're not really doing yourselves any favors for an at-large bid at the end of the season. So this game means a heck of a lot more. It's going to be like at the end of the season, it's the SEC. They should just get into the playoff because it's the SEC, tough schedule. If the Ivy League can't look at themselves like, well, we're Ivy, so we beat each other and we're good. Well, yeah, but you got to beat other teams too. So this game means more. So I'm going to go Dartmouth. I just think that they have a little bit more having not played. But that's a whole other side that I'm bringing up that I am curious about going forward.
Well, there's a couple of other things we need to look at in regards to how the Ivy League coaches are going to handle now playing in the FCS playoffs.
Right.
You mentioned not having a bye there. That's going to – do they get on a normal schedule routine now, start camp earlier, and build in buys? I know that the purists of the league don't want to see that, but it's a big ask to tell these kids, hey, you got to play 10 weeks straight, and
Right.
then you could potentially play upwards of 4 games in the FCS playoffs. That's a lot. Okay,
Right.
there's no bye week in the playoffs, assuming, of course, they make a run. I think the other thing you're going to look at here is these Ivy League schools, with all due respect to Stetson and Georgetown. Harvard opens at Stetson. Brown plays Georgetown. With all due respect to those programs, the Ivy League schools are going to have to beef up their schedule.
Yeah,
they're going to have to play. They're going to have to be willing to travel a little bit week 1, week 2, week 3. And again, obviously Harvard's going to have to go to Stetson. But my point is, and I think Stetson's in Florida, I think. But
yes. Yeah.
My point is, with all due respect to Stetson, Harvard, you probably after this year, you're probably gonna have to up the ante in week 1. Stetson's not gonna count it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
beating the Cowboy Hats isn't enough.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, they challenge themselves in like regionally. Like, we see Harvard
they
take
play
on
Holy Cross,
and UNH teams like that. But that's not enough. You need to get out there and play more CAA schools. You gotta, I'm not saying you gotta take on Montana State, North Dakota State, schools like that, but you gotta, you kind of in a way have to take some of those chances because, like,
yes.
Maine's traveled out to Montana State recently and schools like that. So
Sacred Heart's playing them this year,
right? So it's
or I think actually they're playing Montana, but
right.
Nonetheless, they're going out there.
Right. So those are the games that going forward, we could talk about this. I love talking about this. But it is curious as we move forward. But but I'm gonna go with Dartmouth just because of the freshness factor, and But if UNH wins, I'll tell you, I need to keep eating my words because I thought this was going to be a bit of a rebuilding year to some extent, and they've be proving myself wrong. So.
They're a program. I think at the end of the day, when you're a program that's had as much success as they've had in recent years, the train keeps rolling. It's just the next group of guys that step up, become starters for you, produce, and then the guys that are behind them become your depth guys, and they eventually become starters and so forth. So I think, again, the inexperience is a big reason why I'm picking Dartmouth. But if you told me on Saturday at 5 o'clock that UNH beat Dartmouth, I wouldn't be surprised. As I mentioned earlier as well, URI hosting Long Island. Of course, Long Island, as I said, beat Eastern Michigan a couple weeks ago, but then turns around and loses to Sacred Heart. Devin Farrell and company should win this game, okay? Long Island is talented, but URI is the better football team. They should win this football game. This should not be a game that should be in question. This should be a 10 to 14 point win for the Rams.
Yeah, and the Sharks tend to run the ball a lot, and I think that URI has a very solid run defense. So if you can shut that down, Long Island doesn't really throw the ball too well. So they're super one-dimensional, and I think that Rhode Island just got way too much against that. So I'll take Rhode Island over Long Island. Yeah.
There you go. I like what you did there. Yeah. I agree. All right, Brian at Campbell. Camels coming into this one winless at 0-3, but they did play URI tough in week 1 a couple of weeks ago. But, man, it's hard to pick against the Fighting Merits right now. They're playing some really good football. As I said earlier, I think that UMass win is really going to serve as a springboard for the program this season. You got the big win against UMass. You picked up your first FBS win. You got the new facility. Man, it's a good time to go to school at Bryant University. My nephew goes there. Early impressions by him is he loves it. I don't think the Camels have a shot here. I think the Bulldogs take a bite out of them, and I think they do it in a big way.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bulldogs here, but I similar to what you said, you wouldn't be shocked if UNH. I wouldn't be shocked if the Camels come in here. They've had a lot of close.
You think games. They could put the Bulldogs in the camel clutch?
I don't know. It's if they could get past the
euphemism, a little wrestling reference for all the young folks out there.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Little Iron Sheik.
Yes, I'm gonna take the Bulldogs, but I'm a little worried because I worry they're flying too high, and whereas Campbell,
it can happen.
Campbell really needs this one, whereas Brian's playing with the better house money at the moment. So I'm gonna go against what I think might be Campbell, but I'm gonna take Brian.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is a big game for Campbell. Campbell needs it. They don't want to start the year 0-4. They're at home. Bryant is beatable if you're Campbell. This isn't something that's a fait accompli on Bryant's side.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, again, Brennan Meyer, Zaheem Collick, that connection's been really good. They've got a bevy of running backs. They can run the ball with 3 or 4 guys. Offensive line is good. They're experienced. And the defense, man, the defense is playing really well. They're playing really well through 3 weeks. Kudos to Coach Anthony Barisi, the job he's done there with those guys. They're playing terrific, right? He's had a lot of pressure on him, Coach Barisi, the last couple of years because Bryant under Chris Merritt has always been really good offensively. A little up and down on defense, but Coach Barisi just keeps working at it. He keeps grinding. The defensive staff, they keep grinding. And this is the end result so far of their hard work. They've got this defense playing at a high level. They're playing good football. And that's what I think makes this Bryant team sneaky dangerous in the CAA. If the defense can balance things up with the offense and they can score points and stop people consistently, there could be a potential wild card in the CAA. Maine, as we mentioned, travels to Georgia Southern. Tough matchup for the for the Black Bears, rather, coming off a tough 13-10 loss to Stonehill. It's hard for me not to pick Georgia Southern. They're 1-2, but after last week, I don't know how much faith I have in the Black Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia Southern. Last week was very disappointing for the Black Bears. I was really hoping to see a lot more out of them through the first few weeks here. So, going to go with Georgia Southern. This could turn your season around if you get a big win like this. This is something that could be program shifting, right? But I don't know if that's going to happen, especially being down there.
Well, right. And again, I think if you win this week and you hold serve and you take care of business, your guys are going into this game with more confidence. This is a winnable game for Maine. Let's not get this twisted. This is a winnable game. But after losing last week, to your point, you have to wonder if they're actually good enough to go down to Georgia Southern and win this game. It's a disappointing start for this football team. Remember, they could have beaten Liberty in week 1, 7-7 game going into the fourth quarter. Lose 28-7, lose 28-27 to William and Mary. You cannot come home for your home opener and lay the kind of egg that they laid.
Right.
They have got to be better than that. This program is too talented for that. It's disappointing. You hope they put it all together and get the win down there. I think that could be a potential springboard, but I think it's going to be hard to do. All right, as I mentioned, the Ivy League kicks off this weekend. Next up, we have Holy Cross at Yale. Again, Crusaders come in a desperate team. They're 0-3. Yale, Tony Reno got that program humming. They bring back a good group, especially on defense. Front seven's pretty good. Secondary's pretty good. Some question marks on offense, specifically at quarterback, but Tony's son Dante has transferred into the program. Projected starter at quarterback, dual threat. Bulldogs look pretty good here. I'm not picking against them at home in the home opener. I mean, look, Holy Cross deserves better. As I said earlier, they're better than an 0-3 team. Could very easily be 3-0, but it's hard to pick against Yale here. I think this is going to be another close game, kind of like what Holy Cross has played up until this point, Ryan, but I'm going with Yale.
Yeah, this sucks because it's like, I mean, Holy Cross has got to get one of these eventually, right? But the same thing happened last year.
You just took the words out of my mouth. They started the same way last year.
Yeah, I mean, like they lost by 7 to this, a little bit, of course, different Yale team. And, and it's like they just keep losing these. And I'm going to go with Yale because of that freshness factor, right? With the new transfer quarterback and all that. But, like, you have to wonder if they do lose again this week or even this week, are they coming in a little bit like with this kind of thought in the back of their head, like, oh, we're always close, but we don't know how to finish. Like I don't know. That's so I'm going to take Yale just for that. And I hope I eat my words. I hope that they can finally get one of these, because Dan Carr's been too good so far. There's too many close games thus far. So,
but I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think this is a tough one for them to go into New Haven and get this one, though. Like I said, I think Yale, when you look at the big four in the Ivy League in recent years, Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale, and I'd probably throw in Princeton. Yale is always seemingly the team that I think, I don't want to say they fly under the radar. Some people, by the way, will argue that it's Dartmouth, but I think Yale is the team that people take for granted because Coach Reno's done such a really good job there for a long time. But I wouldn't take them for granted. This is a very good football team. And if Dante is, in fact, their starting quarterback, he's going to give them a dual threat element, like similar to what they had with Nolan Grooms a couple of years ago. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to be tough to beat. All right, Harvard at Stetson. Crimson return a lot of talent, especially on offense. You got Jaden Craig at quarterback, Shane McLaughlin at running back, Xavier Bascon. This is a good football team. Some question marks at wide receiver, a couple of question marks along the offensive line, but this should be one of the best offenses in the Ivy League. They should get off to a good start here against Stetson.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely take the Crimson. I feel like they play Stetson a lot in these first few weeks. They blew them out last year to start the season. So definitely give me Harvard and let's, they had a perfect start last year when they played them, and I see the same happening this year. This is on the road, a little bit, maybe more annoying to get down there playing in the hot Florida weather, but I'm definitely taking the Crimson here.
Brown kicks off their season at home at Brown Stadium. They host the Georgetown Hoyas. First time that these two programs are meeting. They're scheduled to meet this year and next year. It's a good opportunity for Brown to get off to a good start here. Georgetown comes into the game 2-1, though, so it won't be an easy win by any means. But the Bears need to have a good year. There's going to be some pressure there on James Perry. He made some staff changes. Also, they hit the road hard. They attacked recruiting. There's some stylistic changes philosophically on defense. Expectation is that this Brown program is going to show some meaningful progress this year and take some positive steps forward. This is a big one for James Perry and his staff. They need this one. They need to get off to a good start.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where we're not expecting them to necessarily be competing at the end of the season for the Ivy League, but we are expecting them to be better. And I think this has to be one that you win. I mean, Georgetown hasn't done a whole lot. They are 2-1. They've lost close to Lafayette last week, but still, definitely taking the Brown here.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I mentioned, this is a big game for them. They need to get off to a good start. And as far as Georgetown is concerned, they beat Davidson 51-14 week 1, beat Wagner week 2 31-20, and lost the shootout to Lafayette 42-37. So Georgetown can score points. This is going to be a tough offense to stop. Coach Mulrooney, rather, will have his hands full defending these guys. This has been a really good Hoyas offense so far. This is a program that traditionally has been pretty good on the defensive side. Guy with local ties, Kevin Doherty, the longtime defensive coordinator there, son of the legendary John Doherty, brother of the legendary Gary Doherty. As far as I know, Coach Doherty's still the DC there, but he's done a great job there through the years. This program has played good defense, but their offense has been the story thus far. Not that they haven't played good D. They played pretty good D the first couple weeks. But it'll be a tough matchup for Brown. But if they get this win, it'll be a nice win for them. As I mentioned earlier, New Hampshire is at Dartmouth. So we already previewed that one when we talked about UNH on the CAA side. So that covers all of the New England teams in the Ivy League. Let's go over to the NEC. As I also mentioned earlier, Penn travels to Easton to take on Stonehill, the Skyhawks hosting the Quakers. Look, in a perfect world, Eli Gardner's squad builds off their big win at Maine last week and picks up yet another big win. And this would be a huge win for the program from a building block standpoint. It's going to be tough to do, though. Penn's a good football team. They return a bunch of guys back from the last 2 years. But I would not doubt Stonehill potentially winning this. I'm going to go Penn because I do think they're the better team, but I think Stonehill is going to play them pretty competitively.
Yeah, same. I'm going to go with Penn here just because of I think they just have more talent alone, right? Like Penn is better than Maine probably, but at home after a big win, I mean, they could keep it close. They could keep it scrappy. Take advantage of a program that's just starting the season, and I think it could be a 14-10, 14-13 type win if they're able to get it done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, as much as I would love to pick Stonehill, I'm not writing off Penn.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. That one was marinating there for a while.
You got to get it out. You got
it. Yeah, it was percolating.
Yeah.
Next game we're going to look at is Central Connecticut State at Merrimack. Blue Devils, after a tough opening week loss to UConn, have won their last 2 in a row. They're 2-1 on the season. They head up to Duane Stadium to take on Aiden Pereira and the Warriors at 1 and 2. I think this should be a really, really good game. It's the return of Donovan Wadley. He comes back to Merrimack. Should be a fun matchup. I'm going to go with Central Connecticut State as I lose my earbud here, but I'm going to go with Central Connecticut State in this one. I just think, look, the way that they play, the way that Coach Luck has these guys playing, they're hard to beat. They're tough to beat. They're going to run the football. They're going to stay patient on offense. They're going to try to make some big plays over the top. They're tough to beat. I think Merrimack keeps this close. I think it's back and forth, but I'm going CCSU.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with CCSU as well. I think that they've just got a little bit more to them in general. They just got a little bit more firepower than the Merrimack offense at the moment. I covered this game a couple years ago at Merrimack. It was a great game, a lot of fun. CCSU kept it close, shot themselves in the foot. I just think there's more that CCSU has on the table, but I think this is kind of a coin flip in some ways to me.
All right, next up we have New Haven opening up their home schedule at home against Saginaw Valley State. For me, I think it's simple. I think that the Chargers get it done. They picked up some real momentum with that win over Albany last week. I think Mark Powell's squad is feeling it. You got A.J. Perry at quarterback, who I think is truly one of the gunslingers in the region. He can sling it. He's going to put up big numbers week in, week out. Give me the Chargers here. I think they win this thing by 7 to 10 points, and I think they improve to 2-2 on the season.
Yeah, same. I like this spot for them. I like them coming off a win and against a team that they should have a lot more firepower against.
Yeah, I agree. And finally, Sacred Heart visits Norfolk State, the Fighting Michael Vicks. I think they're the Spartans, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yep, yeah, you nailed it.
Yep. Look, I'll say this, and I don't want the Pio fans out there to hate me for it. I need to see more consistency out of this Sacred Heart program. I'm picking against them because in recent years, they've given me no reason to sit here and be like, you know what? I'm really hardcore on board with the Fighting Nofries. I think they get it done. This is their pattern. They'll play well 1 week. They'll pick up a big win. And then for a week or two, they don't play up to their potential and they lose. I think this is one of those weeks. I'm going with Norfolk State.
Yeah, I think just so we have one pick that's different from one other week, I'm going to take Sacred Heart, but I'm not confident in Virginia. Norfolk State, by their schedule, has not looked great this year, which is my only thought.
It's a very winnable game for Sacred Heart, but
yeah,
again, the consistency is just not there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those where they should win, but are they? And they're going on the road, and this is a game that Norfolk State's looking at, I'm sure, on their schedule as a must-win. So, but I'll take Sacred Heart just for the sake of being different. But like I said, I agree with you. They need to be consistent.
All right, I think we got them all. Did we miss any?
I think we nailed them.
We nailed them. I always double check every week because sometimes it's off. It is possible. I mean, we're covering 17 Division I teams here in New England. It is possible that we miss one. It has happened a couple of times, folks. We're far from perfect. All right, Mr. Barry, any final thoughts here before we put a bow on this week's show?
I'm grateful UMass isn't playing, and I have a spreadsheet here. I have a Google sheet here that I keep of all the things like.
Did you go on the Google? Did you make it on the Google?
I made it on the Google. Yeah,
excellent.
I don't know what Bill Belichick would have called it, like the Lel.
The Google face.
Yeah, the Google face. But what's it called? I want to share someday my screen, but it's so nerdy. I don't know if I should. But yeah, that's all I got to say. I'm excited for another weekend of football to just relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, should be good. Bunch of good games. Make sure that you get out there and enjoy them. The weather should be lovely this weekend. Yeah. So get out there and enjoy some football. Fall is really here now. Yeah. The temperatures are starting to change. A lot of leaves are falling, man. You're starting to see them change color already, and you're starting to see a lot of them on the ground. So fall is definitely here. That will do it for this week's episode of the College Football Preview Show. For Ryan Barry, I'm John Sarianides. Like I said, get out there and enjoy the games. And as always, stay healthy, stay safe. Peace.